Yep, business. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. سبحانك اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد صلاة تخرجنا بها من أوحال الوهم وتوضحنا ما أشكل حتى يفهم إنك تعلم ولا نعلم وأنت علام الغيوب. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. I think this is talk 9 or 10, but we're wrapping things up in terms of no, it's 9 actually. We're going to wrap things up with these Maidens of Paradise. We're going to finish them off today. It's taken me nearly 2.5 sessions to talk about the Maidens of Paradise. And a few disclaimers. First and foremost, I'll just go into the names, one of the names of Paradise that we do each time, and then one of the acts that takes us to Paradise. So the first is the name of Paradise is Jannatu Aden. So Aden is one of the names of Paradise. What is Aden? We know in English Aden is usually translated as Eden. Okay, so we have this word in English, Eden. But what does Aden mean? We have what are you doing there, Ibrahim? Are you playing around with it? Don't press that turns it off, doesn't it? The top one keeps flashing the button. What are you doing?
Menu.
Huh? Oh, right. Just leave that because I don't know what it's going to do if you play around with that with the recording. So Jannah to Aden, we know it's Eden in English, but Aden in Arabic we've got like Adnan, like the name Adnan comes from this root. What does Aden mean? Its essential meaning is istiqrar. It means to be firmly grounded and rooted in something. You're firm, i.e. you're not shaken. And so one of the qualities of paradise is that you feel settled there, that you feel that you're not going to be thrown, usually when you bought your new house, you're worried someone's going to put some jaddu on you or something, or, so they have that big mashallah sign on the, I've got this in front of your house because you're scared, I've got something now, I'm scared some person's going to strip it from me. Well, paradise, you've got the most fabulous grounds and lands, and you never have that fear. You feel absolutely content in it, that Allah will never strip you of that. And so obviously the riches of this world, you always feel you could lose them, and you always know that you will lose them, because in the end you're going to die. It's going to be passed on to someone else. But you won't ever have that feeling in paradise. And also it has a meaning of ulfa, that you feel like, so for example, if you think of a garden in this world, there could be something lurking in the greenery, could be, some rabid ferret or something, I don't know. But there could be something that's going to come and get you. But you don't have that fear. There's no wild creatures in paradise that, and so you feel at peace there. You feel that it's as if it's home. It feels like home. And that's why I spoke about this, I think, in the first lecture, about how important it is with us to actually go out in greenery and connect with greenery, because the reality of it is that it is our home, greenery. And so a lot of the issues that we have when we feel like caught stuck in our heads and just thoughts going back and forth, just go have a good old walk and take your shoes and socks off and get connected to the ground. And honestly, after a while you just think, oh, what was I even thinking about in the first place? They call this earthing or grounding. They have this in. And one of my friends, Shabazz, he actually takes people, Shabazz Mughal from Leeds, actually takes people out these walks and stuff, and he takes these these disillusioned juvenile kids from the Asian community generally, I think. He takes them out and he gets them to hug trees. Yeah, they actually literally have to hug the tree and listen to the tree and connect with it. And he says it's amazing, honestly, it calms them down. And these hyperactive kids, you can imagine it, this gangster boy, he's just hoping his mates aren't looking or no one gets a picture of him. But they actually start connecting with the trees. And so I went to the lakes this weekend and I started doing a bit of hugging the tree. I was making sure no one was looking. But, and it's quite, mashallah, it's quite therapeutic actually. So, and trees are amazing things if you think about it. They're just amazing creatures. And so this is what Jannatu Aden means. And then one of the qualities that takes us to paradise, we said last time, was tawbah, repentance. This time is istiqamah. What's istiqamah? You trying to be straight. Okay, you're trying to straighten yourself out. So this is one of the qualities of a person going to paradise. They're trying their utmost to the best of their abilities to constantly. We've all got a bit of i'wijajiness, a bit of crookedness, and we always recognise that there's always, we always think that person's not thinking right and we are thinking right, but we've got to understand there's always two perspectives of looking at things, and there's always going to be a bit of crookedness in our perception, so we're always trying to straighten ourselves out. So that's a beautiful quality, is that someone recognises we're a little bit crooked and we've got to straighten ourselves out, and there's always another way of looking at things, and I've got to stop being so judgmental of other people. This is a beautiful quality, and we're always going to find, but the fact is we're always going to find to areas we need to straighten ourselves out, and it's an ongoing quality. And so this is what Allah loves to see. We're going to have faults, we're going to upset people, we're going to break people's hearts, we're going to do all these sort of things, but the most important thing is that you are trying. You're trying and you're doing your utmost and you're struggling, and that's what life's all about. And so Allah loves this. He says, "Inna alladhina qalu," He says, "Verily those who say, Rabbuna Allah, that our Lord, our nourisher, our nurturer is Allah, thumma istaqamu," then they are upright. So what did Allah say? He said, "Alastu bi rabbikum," am I not your Lord? And all the souls said, "Yea, here we are, I reckon. Okay, let's throw you in the world and see if you're going to live by what you say, though." That's the reality. The shahada, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Okay, let's see you act upon it then. It's easy to speak it, let's see what you're going to do. Okay, and that's what Allah wants to see. He wants to see it implemented. It's through actions we really expose who we really are. Okay, our actions do, from an essence, define who we are. They show us where we are. Let's not say they define who we are, meaning you can't change. That's the problem if you say, you are bad. No, your behaviour is bad. There's a difference. But they do define in our interactions with people at that moment where we stand. And so we've got to make the changes. And so Allah wants to see that. Whoever does that, فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ, they shall not be feared for, وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ, and they will not grieve in the next life. أُولَٰئِكَ أَصْحَابُ الْجَنَّةِ, they are the companions of the paradise. So this is one of the qualities. And so just a few. First of all, an apology. I've an apology. As I said, my talk was probably the most controversial one, and I make slips in my talk sometimes. I apologise to Firia al-Makhdoom. I made a few cutting statements to the young lady, and so apologies to her. That was a bit of backbiting, so I apologise for that. And so that's so if you are listening, Firia, I doubt you are, but apologies to you for those statements. The other thing I wanted to say is Surah Waqi'ah. I missed a point that I really wanted to talk about. Remember we were talking about, like we said, there's no verses in the Quran that speaks about what the women are going to get, okay, in reality. But then I mentioned there was one, okay. This was a controversial statement as well. I didn't think it was that controversial, but some people had a bit of an issue with it. It says, "Inna ansha'nahunna insha'a." It says, I said all of a sudden, where was it? Here we go. No, I've gone past it, haven't I? Where is it? Yeah. Inna ansha'nahunna insha'a. Now, I said, look, it suddenly flips, it just talks about women all of a sudden. But not just, so I said, it's the only verse that speaks about women again. I said that they're to be made beautiful. And some people are going to be, that's the greatest gift for the woman. She's given back her beauty. Women, they want to know that they're they want to know that they're cherished. They want to know that they're basically that they feel beautiful about themselves. That's a very important quality in women. Some women had an issue with me saying that, okay, but Zach is confused. Okay, no, because the problem is we live in a very gender sensitive world. And so even these issues of masculine and feminine, like male, I've noticed, because I follow these trends about relationships and all this stuff online. So they used to say, men are from Mars and women are from Venus, don't they? Now, even John Gray, I think it was, that wrote that book, he's rewritten the whole book now. And they said we should move away from saying men are this and women from this. And I do agree to a certain extent. That it's not about men are this and women are this, because some men aren't like that and some women aren't like this, so it's dangerous because you start basically saying, oh, I know why you're doing that because you're a woman and women do this, which is dangerous because each individual's different, and so you've got to be careful of pigeonholing people because you might misread them, okay? And so general, yes, we're talking general, Okay, but I think he's right in a way. We have to talk about feminine qualities and masculine qualities. It's a different thing, because within men and women they have masculine. When we say masculine, feminine, we're talking about gender sexes here. We're just talking about that sort of quality of like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He personified both, didn't he? Shyness is a feminine quality, but it was a masculine. It was also within a man to have that shyness. And so we take them. Why? Because we take from our mothers some qualities, which is our feminine qualities, and we take from our fathers other qualities, which are masculine qualities. And so I think that is better, because it means that it doesn't pigeon people as much. And so, yes, of course, most women, I think, are concerned about their beauty. There's some women who aren't. Okay, it's fair to. I'm speaking in generalities, and Allah, He has to speak in generalities. And so this, and I said, give or take, this is my interpretation anyway. But I think what's most beautiful about this verse is, there's ilfitat in there, and ilfitat means flipping from one person to the other. If you notice in the Quran, sometimes Allah in the one verse says He, and then He says we. He says straight away. Okay, He flips within one verse. I just had an example. This week I was talking about, yes, سبحان الذي أسرى بعبده ليلا من المسجد الحرام إلى المسجد الأقصى الذي. Notice this, Subhan, glory be to the one, Subhan الذي أسرى, who took his slave on a night journey at night. It's really strange, this verse, because Isra means a night journey, but then he says Laylan, at night. He goes, just to emphasize it's at night, meaning that, and I wish I had said this in my talk, but I'm all over the place in my talks, is that the Prophet ﷺ was in darkness going to his Lord, because that's his state at that time. He was in the hardest point of his life. You know, when we talked about in that talk this week, I was speaking about Jonah, that belly bit in the belly of the beast. That's where what Allah's saying. This is my interpretation, that He's taken him from darkness, in the time of darkness, right up to the heavens to ascend. And I believe, like I gave examples in my talk this week about my circumstances. I believe it's sometimes in your darkest hour when you get your biggest illuminations, your transcend, that suddenly, if you can just basically open up to it, bam, Allah gives you an opening beyond openings. And I gave you 2 examples of my life when I got a good hiding. So then he says أسرى بعبده ليلا من المسجد الحرام from Masjid al-Haram to إلى المسجد الذي باركنا حوله, that we blessed. He just said, glory be to the one who took his slave. It's all in the third person there, he. And then all of us, he says, which we blessed. الذي باركنا حوله لنريه, in order for us to show him from our signs. Then he says, إِنَّهُ هُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ, verily He is the all-hearing, the all-seeing. So he flips twice from third person. This is beautiful, this, because when Allah speaks in the third person, He's transcending Himself, meaning you can't understand Him. Because you know, like when you say He's not in the room, is He? You know, Ijaz did this, da 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 da. Why am I saying he? Because Ijaz isn't in the room. We're not speaking to him at the moment. He's beyond us. He's somewhere else. We have to try to conceptualize Ijaz, okay? But then I say, then suddenly if he comes in the room, now we're speaking we and you, aren't we? So when Allah uses the third person, he's elevating. When he comes into we now, it's a personal relationship, but it's his power and glory, because he's saying we. Okay, for us in all our glory to honour the Prophet ﷺ, given us. Then he flips back, إِنَّهُ هُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ, very He's all hearing, all seeing, but He's above what you're hearing and seeing is. He's not like He's seeing and hearing, He's not yours. Very beautiful flip. He does it here throughout Surah Waqi'ah. It's all third person. It's all third. They get this, they get this. He doesn't even mention Allah. إِذَا وَقَعَتِ الْوَاقِعَةُ لَيْسَ لِوَقَعَتِهَا. All these events, and then suddenly Allah says, إِنَّا أَنشَأْنَاهُنَّ إِنشَاءً, we gave them. He didn't mention Allah at all in it before. He's saying this is a great gift I'm giving to the ladies. Is inna ansha'nahunna insha'a. Okay, that's the first time in Surah Waqi'ah that Allah speaks in the first person. He even speaks about Himself at all. So this is a great gift. Allah is blessing you, okay, with making you the most beautiful you could ever be. Okay, so this is the greatest gift that the women give. And so, first of all, you've got to understand, with these issues, like I said, this is one of the most controversial issues in terms of paradise. We've got to understand, first of all, when we approach the Quran, we have to approach it like we're open to it. Okay, it's not like any other book, the Quran. It's not like after you've read it, you give your little review on Amazon what you thought about it. Okay, is this my critique of the Quran? You know, I'm sure there's one Amazon review of the Quran. That'd be interesting to see, isn't it? Did you give it 5 stars? But you can't do that with the Quran. The Quran is you accept it, okay, and you open up to it in order to understand it, and that's what we do in the Quran. So when I'm doing this, what I'm doing here, I'm trying to fathom what Allah is trying to say. I could be wrong, okay, but this is my challenge. I've been thrown here on the stage, basically, to interpret what paradise is for you guys. In the end, it's my effort. All we understand, you know, in the end, is paradise is going to be great. We ain't going to be sitting there thinking, well, Idris explained it like this. I know, I'm not too... You probably will say, it's not like Idris said it would be. I'm sure there will be aspects of that. Okay, but that's what we're doing in this life, isn't it? We are trying to explain something that's beyond explanation. In the end, we come to Allah's religion trying to understand it, but in the end, Allah knows, you know, most of those things we're going to fall short. So naturally, I'm going to make mistakes in this thing. It's just, but Allah loves us to do this. Us trying to, just the effort. I'm trying to, what's it going to be like, you know? And so that's the first thing. Okay. So the next thing is, I think this is another important point. So people that may have had an issue with what I said, I think first of all, we've got to, what's beautiful about our religion is it's real. Don't try to, you know, we have aspects of us we have to expect, like, you know, we have to accept. Like, for example, I don't get scared. No, not me. No, we have this culture now, isn't it, where we have to basically be Mr. Tough Guy, especially us guys. We've always got to be tough. So, no, I'm not scared. No, that was sissy stuff, that was. Okay. Yeah. But the reality is, what's so beautiful about Islam, it tells us how things are. So, and this is the greatest gift, okay, speaking to the men here, is that we are men, and Allah's placed within us attraction to more than one woman. Okay, that's just the nature, and the Quran establishes that, and so that's a gift we get in paradise. Okay, but in this life, what's the thing? The greatest, we are rewarded for us saying no to those temptations. So, for example, there you are on Facebook, and you're scrolling, and you get an invite, and you said, "Oh my goodness me, who's inviting me to?" You know, it's crazy, honestly. You go on there, and someone sends you an invite to, you know, as a friend, and you're like, "Whoa!" Okay, and you scroll down. But the fact is that you say no to it and you scroll down. Okay, we're walking in, we're seeing pictures of all sorts of crazy things. But what do we say? We can't say, no, I'm not affected by that. You know, you're transcending and pretending to be Mr. Superman. No, that's dangerous, because if you do that, if you try to pretend you're not affected by it, it's going to affect you even more. It gets you. What you've got to say is, that's difficult, that's a struggle, but I know that my reward is, this is why we have paradise, because we say we're not going to do it in this life. We're not going to do it in this life. And the greatest gift you can give to your wife is that you say, look, we are tempted 24/7 in this society, but the fact is we choose our wives over all those temptations. That's the reality. We're men, we get tempted, we struggle, there's things in life, but what we say is we choose our wives, and that's what's really special. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. You recognise, I'm weak, I'm struggling, okay, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards you for admitting that struggle and for you the ability to get over that. But to deny it and say, no, I don't need that in paradise, I don't need that, Allah knows you better than you do. That's the reality. أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ وَهُوَ اللَّطِيفُ الْخَبِيرُ in Surah Mulk. Does he not know who he created? So the reality is, when Allah says He's going to give us these things and give these things, He knows what you really need. And you know, in paradise, we're going to be given bodies that are tuned with what we will want in paradise, what we'll have in paradise. So that's something else I wanted to talk about. So we're going to wrap up this basically. Now. So there's a few last things. So it says a man, this is a hadith related by Ibn Hibban and Hakim and Bayhaqi. It says a man will recline in the garden for 70 years. So that when he actually comes into his garden of paradise, he's just basically going to be lying back going, whoa, okay? He's just be taking it all in the experience. He's not even going to get up, you know. He's just going to lie there and go, whoa, man, this is amazing. And he says, before he moves, so he's just going to lie there for 70 years without moving first. Okay, just taking it all in. And then his wife will touch him on his shoulder and he will gaze in her face. So then he recognises, oh. And then she will touch his shoulder and he will gaze in her face and he will see his face reflect back in her cheeks like a mirror. So he'll check himself out in his wife's face. And she'd do likewise, okay? She'd get to check herself out and she'd say, God, you're gorgeous. I'm speaking, and he'd say, I know. And he says, no, I'm speaking about myself. But now, Allah knows, but this is another thing we have to grapple with religious texts. Is the Prophet _, speaking literally or is it figurative? Okay, and this is always a challenge. Generally, the position of our scholars in the religion is we affirm the outward, okay, if it's possible. If it's not possible, like I said before, like I mentioned about you seeing the marrow of the maiden in paradise, I'm saying I think that's more figurative, okay, because I can't see, but that's my own brain. I'm sure in paradise, if we will find that attractive, if that, you know, Allah knows best, but. I said, but does that mean that when it says reflection here, does that mean literal, or does that mean that he's being figurative? I.e., they're so radiant, they're so fair that basically it's almost as if they're being reflected. Allah knows best. And he says, one pearl on her crown. So she gets her little crown. What do you call those things? Tiara. She's on her tiara, on her crown. She will have one pearl on her crown, will light up the east and the west, and she will greet him. So that's the first experience of the women of paradise. And when we say women of paradise, even Salama, the wife of the Prophet ﷺ, she asked about the Hurul Ain, and we said Hurul Ain means women who are very, very fair and they're very wide-eyed. And it says, who are they? And so the Prophet ﷺ said, Hun al-lawati qubidna fi dar ad-dunya ajaiz. They are the women who were taken. They passed away in this life as old women who had dirty eyes and they were grey black hair. So basically they're all shriveled up old ladies. He says, خَلَقَهُنَّ اللَّهُ بَعْدَ الْكِبْرِ. He says, Allah created them after old age. فَجَعَلَهُنَّ عُذَارِ. He made them young virgins, not being touched. And He made them عُرْبًا. He made them, and we spoke about this last time, عُرْبًا. What does that mean? It means they're equal in age, but they're able to express to one another exactly what they want to say, because in this life that's our struggle, isn't it? Not just with women, for men, trying to get the person to understand what I mean, okay? And often there's misinterpretation. There's this brilliant quote by Miles Davis, who was an old jazz artist. It says, if you understand everything I said, you'll be mad, because it's impossible. How can you understand everything? If you could get in my head, you'll go bonkers, because you've got to battle with your thoughts and then my thoughts. And so the whole challenge of this world is to just get a grasp of what's being said. And we have to understand that when we're speaking, they're not going to understand everything we're trying to say. So we have to understand that they're going to misunderstand and we're going to misunderstand. And that's the battle of life, trying to get clarity from one another. It's a really crazy experience if you think about it. And so, but in paradise, we understand one another like that. I get what you mean straight away. Okay, we don't have this struggle with language. And so عربان متعشقات, and he says they're deeply in love. متحببات, so that they're deeply in love and engrossed with one another. أترابا على ميلاد, we're all at one age. So everyone would be the age of what? 33. Okay, everyone will be of equal age. That's considered when you're at your peak, 33. Okay, so most of us are over the hill, aren't we? Okay. And so next. Now, it says there's songs. We spoke about they will sing in paradise, maidens of paradise, but it's not just the maidens of paradise that will sing. It says, if my handwriting, I'm terrible with my. It says Israfil and the other angels will sing. Sidna Dawood will sing, and the trees and the rivers will sing in paradise as well. And so they're going to sing out. What are they going to sing out? They're going to sing out praise with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, subhanallah, and so forth. But they'll be in such sweet voices, like the sweets to the ear. These are other things of paradise for the women. Okay, he says, now, another thing, he says, this is an interesting issue. He says, they say that the last woman your wife that you if I get my words right, because this is an issue in the community. It says if your husband or wife, well, husbands primarily, if your husband dies, that will be the one that you have in paradise, the last one. So there was a situation where Abu Darda, his wife, Abu Darda passed away radiallahu anhu, and his wife Darda, Muawiyah, proposed to her, and she says, I don't want to marry after my husband. Why? She wants to be with him in paradise. Have you heard this position? No? So this happened. This was a beautiful story with Salama and Abu Salama. Abu Salama, he was on his deathbed. He was martyred at Uhud, to the best of my knowledge. But they had a conversation, the two of them. They loved one another greatly. And she said, basically, I'm not going to marry anyone after you. And he says, no, you will, and you're going to find someone better than me. I want someone to look after you. And who did she get? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So look at that sacrifice he made. He didn't get her in paradise. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam gets her, but he wanted the best for his wife. Their story is amazing. And like when they had to migrate to Medina as well, this anguish the two of them had to go through. It's an amazing story. But this is only one position. It's said that actually she gets to choose her favourite. So if you want her in paradise, make sure you behave yourself. Because she might marry someone else and say, which one should I choose? So, and this is why, there's a hadith, it says, المرء في آخر أزواجها, the wife is with her last of her spouses. And some say it's the best in character, so she gets to choose the best in character, or she chooses, basically, who she wishes. And we have another narration with Asma. She was married to Zubair ibn Awam, and there was problems. They eventually divorced. And she went complaining to her father, Abu Bakr, about the situation, the relationship. And Abu Bakr said, insisted, he asked her, look, just bear with him, because he is a pious man. He just struggles, in a relationship. And this is a beautiful thing. I'm hesitant. Some people use this because there are narrations that Zubair was actually physically abusive to his wives and so forth. But they're very weak relations, so I'm hesitant to even assert that. But we know that there was a struggle in the relationship at any rate. And this shows that there can be, that you struggle to have good relationships with your spouses does not take away necessarily, this is a controversial point, does not take away necessarily from your station with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're two separate things, but I believe relationships do reflect where you're with Allah, but I think that gives hope to, people that had really bad upbringings, and they really are trying to overcome those behaviours, but they're really struggling. They're doing their effort to try to, and it just doesn't work out, the relationship. Okay? That's not to doom them. Because I think the biggest problem in our society is that we think we're failures if our marriages have failed. And I think that's very unhealthy. You're not a failure because your marriage failed. It's a learning experience. And you can move on from it. Do you know what's so beautiful about Arab society is that as soon as a woman divorced, there was a suitor ready to take her hand. That's what's so beautiful. They didn't see marriage as a failure. They just saw it as two people weren't suited for one another. They couldn't work it out. And I think that's a lot of health. That would solve so many problems in our community. But there's such a stigma about, she got, especially the women, it's terrible, honestly. As soon as she's divorced, stigmatised straight away. So I think we need to get back to this understanding. There's a brilliant book about this called Conscious Uncoupling. It's like teaching, helping people after a divorce. Because it's very soul destroying, divorce. But talking about how to get around it, over it, and how to rebuild your life and so forth. You've got to really understand divorce is not the end necessarily, but obviously there's so many struggles we've got in our society over these issues. It says, what's other descriptions of the Maidens of Paradise? He says they're like concealed pearls, not touched by men and not touched by the sun. In old society, you've got to understand is that fairness was considered beautiful. I mean, it still is today, to reality. And in English society, and it must have been in Arab society as well, they didn't want to get tanned. Okay, now they're all going to the town. It baffles me when an Asian comes back from holiday and says, "Oh, I got a really nice tan on holiday." I say, "You're already tanned." I don't understand. Now Asians wanting to get tans. I mean, it baffles me. I mean, but obviously for us,
how English they become.
Yeah, they're well integrated. But obviously for us whiteys, in the old days we wanted to stay white. The well-to-do, the aristocracy and so forth, they stayed indoors. They wanted to be as white, as pale white as possible because they saw that as beautiful. If you had a bit of tan to you, you're a labourer. Okay, but obviously look how things have changed, subhanAllah. So we've got to understand things from that context, that Allah speaking about the fairness is beautiful. That's how they understood it. And obviously, naturally, most societies, this is another controversial point about paradise. I don't want to get into it because it's too controversial. It's about, obviously, skin colour and so forth. But paradise is, even if you look at every culture, if you go to Sudan or you go to Mauritania or so forth, where people are generally darker, they have this conception of light people and dark people still. They get really confused when a Caucasian turns up. They say, "Oh my God, he's pink, he's not white." That's the reality. But in every culture they had this concept of fairness being beautiful, and so because in culture, Allah makes us all fair. Okay, just as He makes us 30 cubits tall. Okay, all these short people start saying, "Well, hang on a minute, I like my shortness." Okay, but height in society, obviously, height generally is considered of beauty, and so Allah gives us in paradise what's considered beautiful by humans throughout history. Okay, another thing it says, the Prophet in Sahih Bukhari says, if one of the women from the people of paradise were to ittala'at ila ahli al-ard, were to just look down upon the people of this earth, la'adat ma bainha, the whole earth would absolutely become ablaze with light, and the whole earth would just fill with the scent of her. That's how beautiful she is in her radiance and how fair she is. Even if it was, sorry, my handwriting's terrible here. Oh yes, and she said even the scarf, so even they will be veiled in the next life. It says will be finer than the dunya and everything in it. Okay, just even showing how miraculous and how beautiful these women are. Even the cloth that she's wearing, not even herself, is finer than the dunya and everything in it. The last thing to wrap up this topic, I think. The last thing I was going to talk about is how do you get the Maidens of Paradise? And there's a common thing in communities is about, have you heard about it? About the crumbs. Have you heard about this? The ruti crumbs. Basically, the crumbs that fall on the floor, that's the mahar, that's the dowry, the dower for the Maidens of Paradise. And so I used to always make a joke with my wife. I used to say, I'm eating them, and she goes, you can have them. She used to make a joke. I had to pull her leg. But this is baseless, it is mentioning things, but there is a slight basis. It says there's a hadith related by Tabarani that's weak. It says, إخراج القمامة من المسجد وحور العين. It says taking out the waste from the mosque is considered the dower for the Maidens of Paradise. And so they take from this that anything that you would consider menial, so the reality is we should all be cleaning up the streets. I say, what's your motivation? So that's the down. So that's the common. It's a cultural thing generally. Is there anything that people consider menial basically? That's something it's not just the Maidens of Paradise, a dower. That's paradise basically. If you do something that no one else would want to do and it's of service, that is going to give you a higher station in paradise. So these are something that we strive for. The smallest things. These are what are going to give us the real special gifts in paradise. Allah grant us that. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك عملنا السوء وظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا نكن من الخاسرين. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala everything we recited and read today is coming together for your sake. You recording the record of Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his family, his companions, the two blessed generations after, and all your righteous noble servants that call people to your way and guide people to your way from the beginning of time to the end of time as a gift from us to our superiors. So God Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we don't leave this gathering except all our sins are forgiven, all our worries and woes are removed, all our debts are cleared, and all our needs in this life and the next are fulfilled. So God Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you keep us strong in our faith. So God Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you increase us in our faith. So God Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, give us determination, give us istiqamah in our religion. So God Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you enable us to love, to gather in places of blessing. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those things that are blessed for us, endear our hearts to those things. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you bless our loved ones and bless our parents and bless our spouses and bless our children, our immediate families and extended families. Allah have mercy upon this ummah, rectify the state of this ummah, conceal the faults of this ummah. Those who are suffering and sick, Allah give them speedy recovery and bring them back to sound health. Those who are struggling, Allah make easy their affair. Those who have lost loved ones, Allah replace their sorrow with worry, with happiness and joy. Those who have passed away, Allah have mercy upon their sorrow and raise their stations in the next life and forgive them the shortcomings in this life. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we all die in a full state of iman. Our last words being La ilaha illallah Sayyidina Muhammad Rasulullah. We die upon it, raise upon it, day of Qiyamah, we'll be reunited with the one that brought it to us, and he take us into paradise and reckon our trial or test, and we get to see the reality of these things that we're only alluding to in these talks for eternity and beyond, and gain the greatest gift of all is to gaze upon your countenance in the company of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that's not difficult for you. Ya Allah, subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun, wa salamun ala al mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Allahumma salli